Hey there, this is Phil. Welcome back to the show. I am here with Sky Jatani.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Sky. How are you?
I'm all right.
And we don't have Christian Taylor here. We have a guest. We have a guest playing the role of Christian Taylor. We will meet her shortly. We're not going to meet her yet. Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And we got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. Oh, we'll talk to Sky.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, but Christian's gone. We've got a guest here to sing along. Hi, Angie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. Phil Vischer podcast starts right here.
Isn't that the worst?
I kind of like it, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You've not
I don't know
been
about
through...
fantastic, but I like it.
Try it 250 times.
See, the ukulele has an effect on you that it just makes you feel happy, except that appearing happy is not part of Sky's brand.
That is so not true. That is so entirely not true.
Because he is the skeptical, I don't know what he is, but he's the prophet. You know, he's a prophet.
Yeah.
And prophets were not
Don't like ukuleles.
No, they're not a happy bunch. Prophets and ukuleles don't go together.
How do I even begin to combat that? I need some reinforcement.
You can't, because it's just true.
It's not just true.
You can't combat the truth.
I'm happy.
Unless you have a set of alternative facts.
All right, what are we doing?
Do you?
Of course.
What do you mean you're happy? Smile when you say that.
I am. I'm smiling.
Oh,
that's
That is.
What do you want me to do?
Smiling.
Okay, pastor tries to demonstrate how Jesus walked on water, gets eaten by crocodiles.
Really?
Yeah. It happened.
Where?
Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay, I was really hoping this wasn't Florida.
No, that would be eaten by alligators.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't have my reptiles straight.
Okay, and she doesn't know the governor of her own state. The pastor in Zimbabwe decided that he could walk on water and that he would demonstrate this for his congregation.
Sorry, this is a horribly tragic story, and I'm laughing, and you're saying I don't laugh.
No, I said you don't smile.
I'm smiling
One
too.
of the
This is
elders.
horrible.
Oh, you smile at someone.
I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, I have images in my head, and they're all from movies.
One of the elders said, the pastor promised he would demonstrate his faith to us today, but he unfortunately ended up drowning and getting eaten by 3 large crocodiles in front of us. We still don't understand how this happened because he fasted and prayed the whole week. They finished him in a couple of minutes. All that was left of him when they finished eating him is a pair of sandals and his underwear floating on top of the water.
So they're discriminating.
What?
The alligators, crocodiles are discriminating. They didn't eat the shoes or the underwear.
Oh, that's discrimination?
Well, those are the dirtiest parts.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, that's an interesting angle to take on this story.
Well, I don't know.
That we've now learned something about crocodiles.
Right.
And yeah. So I'm not even sure what category to file that under.
Wow.
The whole story?
Yeah, the whole story. That if just because you say you're going to do something with God's power doesn't mean God has signed on.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting the congregation was saying he fasted and prayed.
It should have worked.
Yeah, like that's some kind of...
It should have worked. He totally fasted and prayed.
Right.
Would you rather be a pastor bitten by a snake that dies or eaten by crocodiles? So a snake handling pastor or a water walking crocodile pastor?
There's not an either or.
Well, if you have to choose one.
I would probably rather get bitten by a snake.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. It hurts. I guess it hurts.
Yeah.
But it's just one bite.
But he drowned first.
Did he?
Yeah.
He drowned during.
Well, they said he drowned and then he was eaten.
Yeah,
They
okay.
did, yeah.
Maybe.
But I don't. The details.
I wonder if he knew how to swim.
This horror. Why'd you pick
Really
this
sad.
story? This is sick.
Well, it's unusual.
Yeah, but it's sick.
Okay. Ed Stetzer, our friend Ed Stetzer.
Yeah.
Got a piece published by the Washington Post.
Okay.
He wrote a piece for the Washington Post. If current trends continue, mainline Protestantism has about 23 Easters left.
Mainline Protestantism.
Mainline Protestantism.
Okay.
Generianism. The news of mainline Protestantism's decline is hardly new, yet the trend lines are showing a trajectory towards zero in both those who attend a mainline church regularly and those who identify with a mainline denomination. That will cross zero 23 years from now.
What's 23 years from now?
2039, I believe, was their forecast. It's partly related to demographics. Mainline Protestants don't have very many babies. Not compared to us prolifically procreating evangelicals. We can't stop having babies.
Well, part of the issue there, though, is there's a whole lot more immigrants counted among the evangelical congregations rather than
That's true.
mainline, and immigrants have a heck of a lot more kids than native-born.
Why don't immigrants become Methodists?
Because most immigrants to the U.S. are coming from countries where either Roman Catholicism or Pentecostalism are the dominant religious traditions, and so the mainline isn't really a fact.
That's not it's not a thing,
right?
Because they're not. If you're not as evangelistic, you're not out there making converts in the third world or the developing world who are then coming as immigrants.
Yeah.
Is that a good theory?
Yeah, but
or have I just offended someone?
No. This is kind of a. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but the growth of Christianity in the world is a result more of procreation than it is of conversion.
Yeah, but it's procreation for Jesus, so it still counts.
Okay, I'm just simply saying that the church growth is really more a result of people having babies than it is of people actually converting non-believers.
Except in Africa and.
Well, even there, it's a lot. I mean, you look at where the birth rate is highest, and it's also where the
that's true.
You know,
that's true. Ed Stetzer thinks there's something deeper, though, just other than demographics. Another part of the demographic issue is that mainline Protestants tend to live in northern and in eastern areas that are in socioeconomic decline, whereas the growing Sun Belt is much more evangelical.
This is true.
Okay, but Ed Stetzer says there's something deeper going on.
What's the deeper thing?
Something deeper. Over the past few decades, he says, some mainline Protestants have abandoned central doctrines that were deemed offensive to the surrounding culture. Jesus literally died for our sins and rose from the dead, the view of the authority of the Bible, the need for personal conversion, and more. Some of mainline Protestants' leaders rejected or minimized those beliefs as an invitation for more people to join a more culturally relevant and socially acceptable church. But if the mainline Protestant expression isn't different enough from mainstream culture, people turn to other answers.
Okay, can we pause for a second?
Yeah. I have a pause button.
Good. He's making an argument that people have been making for 40 years.
No.
Yeah, oh, even longer.
No.
Yeah, the argument has been that mainline denominations decline because they've abandoned Orthodox theology.
Okay.
And people more or less bought that argument for the last 40 years because you saw a decline in mainline denominations during the growth of more fundamentalist or evangelical denominations. However, over the last 10 years, that theory has come under serious question.
Has it?
Yes. Because while there is an ongoing decline of mainline denomination, we are also witnessing a decline now of evangelical denominations, Southern Baptist being the most obvious one. So the old assumption that people were leaving the mainline to go into evangelical churches doesn't seem to be holding up.
I don't know that that's what they're saying. I don't know that he's saying they're leaving the main line to go into...
But the inverse would be if you maintain a rigidly Orthodox belief system, you shouldn't decline.
Or decline slower. Okay, but there's data backing this up, Sky. Would you like to hear the data?
I can't wait. Let's hear it.
Angie, would you like to hear the data?
To hear the data.
Okay. As David Haskell explained in the Washington...
Say Hasselhoff.
Do you remember David Haskell? He was in Leave It to Beaver. We found 93% of clergy members and 83% of worshipers from growing churches agreed with the statement, Jesus rose from the dead with a real flesh and blood body, leaving behind an empty tomb. Now, churches that were declining, only 67% of worshipers and 56% of clergy members agreed with that statement.
But correlation is not causation. Right?
No, but it's something.
It's correlated. It's not necessarily the cause.
Yeah, so churches that are declining also believe less in the bodily resurrection of Jesus.
Yes.
Churches that are growing
No. That
believe
no.
more.
Hey, like I said, the Southern Baptists have a very, very orthodox doctrinal statement, and yet they've been declining for years.
Well, that doesn't mean believing in it makes your church grow.
Well, it also
That's
means
what they're
not
saying.
believing in it doesn't make your church decline.
But it appears to.
That's the difference between correlation and causation.
Yeah.
You could probably make an argument that the body mass index of the average Southern Baptist is something or other, and it might be less in a mainline denomination. It doesn't mean that skinny people are leaving church.
Did you just call Southern Baptists fat?
No.
I can't believe it.
Fine, pick a different
You
denomination.
better
The Christian
smile when you
Missionary
say that.
Alliance. I'm just saying, these things are not a correlation, and it doesn't mean it's the cause.
Yeah, okay.
You could probably come up with 30 different explanations for why the mainline denominations are declining.
Okay.
Not just that one.
Okay.
You know,
we'll have Ed Stetzer back on the show.
Fine,
He's
but
bigger than you.
I'm just saying the assumption there is, well, then if we just hang on to an orthodox view of the resurrection,
everything
everything will be fine.
And if we avoid trying to walk on water
with
crocodiles, everything will go fine.
Actually, I think that is true. If you avoid walking on water with crocodiles, you probably will be okay.
Will grow?
Well,
are you promising my church will grow?
You'll probably keep your pastor longer.
All right. Okay. We have a guest. Our guest, someone's calling me, and I'm not going to answer my phone. Our guest is Angie Weszely. It's Weszely?
Weszely,
Weszely,
actually.
but it has a Z in it.
So it's a misspelling of a Hungarian name. And if we had more time, I would tell you the story.
I bet there's a great story.
There is kind of.
Misspelling of a
Why
Hungarian
you chose to misspell your name?
I didn't. My husband's
Your husband
great-grandfather.
chose to.
Throw the in-laws
Had
under
I
the
not
bus.
been so conservative back 25 years ago, I might have kept my maiden name. It
Which
was a lot
is what?
Kramer with a C. How easy is that?
That's pretty
I
easy.
spend my whole
Kramer
life
with
putting
a
the
C.
Z in this last name.
Weszely.
Yeah. But I like it.
What if
Very
you just
thankful
dropped the Z?
But then my family would be, the
they'd be
Wesleys of
offended.
America.
The
we might be.
Wesleys of
It's a great
America.
name.
It's a fantastic name. You should be proud of it.
I am actually.
I don't want to hear any more griping
I'm glad to have it.
from
Okay, I'm
you
done. I'm
out
done.
of your
No more.
about your name. Angie Weszely is the CEO of ProGrace.
Yes.
What that is, we will get into. Okay, where are you from?
Well, I'm from Illinois, but I'm
Fantastic.
a recent transplant to Colorado.
Okay.
And today I learned our governor, which is good because I think I have a whole year in a new place
And
to
what's
learn
his
that kind
name?
of stuff. Oh,
What's his name?
quiz time.
Hickeldopper? What was
Hickenlooper.
Hickenlooper. Yeah, like a
Hickenlooper.
roller coaster. Hickenlooper.
Hickenlooper.
I'm going to Google him as soon as I leave this.
Yeah, the
He's an
fact.
interesting character, actually.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find out.
Okay, ProGrace is a ministry dealing with everyone's favorite topic to bring up at dinner with their non-Christian friends, abortion.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, why? How long have you been involved with women's issues?
Yes.
I mean, what's your story? Where did you start?
Well, I mean, I started in this sphere about 12 years ago.
Okay.
I had no experience in pro-life or pro-choice. I had other things in my background, but not this. And I literally kind of stumbled into this issue. So I ended up leading an organization called CARIS, which is here in Chicago, which, what's that? Oh, I thought like I said something.
No, that's
I thought that was a code on the show.
that's
like a,
the brand bell.
Yeah, the product placement bell.
Placement bell.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about it.
If you
Okay.
mention any brand,
Oh, interesting.
He'll push,
Okay,
he'll
interesting.
ding the bell.
So we, CARIS served women facing unplanned pregnancy, and that is where I started on this journey of really asking the question, how have we as Christians been addressing the abortion issue? And are there some things we could do differently? So ProGrace is really about creating a third option in the abortion debate.
You describe it as a solution to abortion that doesn't rely on politics.
Yes.
Okay,
It
so
relies on the church.
Yeah.
this is coming after a very nasty election in which a lot of Christians, we kept hearing the phrase "hold their nose" when they voted because they didn't like either candidate.
Right.
But for a lot of Christians, they held their nose and voted for Donald Trump because he promised to put someone on the Supreme Court who was pro-life.
Right.
So that was kind of the single issue. But you want to transcend the whole political debate. Why?
Yeah. Well, first of all, politics are human institutions. Like both political parties have been created by people, so neither one is going to perfectly hold a Christian worldview. Like there's just no way we can say this one political party is going to perfectly represent Jesus and everything.
Are you sure?
I've had that argument with some
sure.
sure. Yeah. On true story, I was preaching one time and the message got slightly political, and this guy came up to me really angry afterwards.
Your message got slightly political?
Slightly. Yes.
The message got slightly... I was preaching, the message got slightly political.
Yeah.
Take responsibility.
I am taking
responsibility. What did you do?
And anyway, he came up to me afterwards, and he was kind of agitated by the whole thing, and I said to him something like, you know, he was a middle-aged guy, had kids. I said, is it more important to you that your kids grow up and are committed to Christ, or that they grow up and are committed to the Republican Party? And he looked at me and he said, there's no difference.
Wow.
That he literally said there is no difference. He could not differentiate the two.
Wow.
So I was just like, so there's a lot of people who actually hold those things so tightly.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
So.
But if you look in this particular issue, the way it's been framed is that one party says we are going to champion the needs of the woman,
right,
and the other party says we're going to champion the needs of the child.
Right.
Well, God, in His infinite wisdom and His heart, champions the needs of both.
How do you know?
Well, okay, I'll go to our first core theological belief. We'll go into theology.
Yeah.
Is that God could have chosen to bring life into the world any way He wanted.
Yeah.
Right? He's God.
Like an amoeba.
Eggs.
Asexually.
Yeah.
Budding.
Sporing.
Yeah.
Any way He wanted. But
Stork drops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But His design is pregnancy. And in that design, a woman and a child are intertwined for 9 months in such a way that anything you do to one impacts the other. Mm-hmm. So this idea that we can try to help one and bypass the other will never work because it's not in line with God's design of pregnancy. So that's the first problem with the political debate, something that God joined together, both parties kind of separate, and you're literally pitting the needs of a woman against a child. Right. So yes, I believe that biblically we can prove that God is just as committed to the dreams and the dignity and the welfare of both the woman and the child. And that's the fault. That's the faultiness of the whole political back and forth is people talk at each other because they're not talking holistically, looking for holistic solutions for both.
It seems like that applies to things beyond abortion.
Yes.
I mean, it's just the nature of our two-party system that we are going to bifurcate everything that should remain a unified issue.
And you think you can do something about this?
I think God is doing something about this, and it's pretty fun joining with Him. So,
good answer.
Yeah, we started when I was with Charis, which was a ministry serving the needs of women. We adopted this ProGrace mentality and theology, and we were started out of the Moody Church in Chicago. So Dr. Erwin Lutzer is a friend, and was great because I was able to write down theological thoughts and then send them to him and say, we really want to stay true to the Bible. We believe the Bible is the Word of God. What we're questioning is how we as Christians have applied the Bible in some ways to this issue. So it was really great to have that relationship.
What were the areas where you thought, I'm not sure we're getting this right?
So it wasn't even anything specific. And looking back, so this is maybe 10 years ago now, 9 years ago, what I'm realizing is, and this is something from branding, if you're into branding, anytime there's only, his dinger,
That's
anytime.
Branding's not a brand.
Taco was excited about the idea of his purpose in life being mentioned.
Just so
Taco the dog.
Our listeners don't know, Phil reached over and touched Taco.
I did. That's never happened before.
No.
Wow.
Never happened
Which
before.
means Plinky Pete is now on notice.
You already touched Plinky Pete, and we know how that went down.
Okay, sorry.
So back to branding. Anytime we've grown up where there's only two options, our mental models run so deep into those options that
Coke or Pepsi?
Right.
Would that be an example?
That's a great question. I'm
Seriously?
not that much a specialist in branding.
Two options.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I learned this from a branding expert. So anytime you go outside of those envelopes, in the way we're just designed to process morality and thought, we think the person, or ourselves is slipping into the other side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So because I had tension around the pro-life expression, it caused me inner tension myself. Like, well, I wouldn't say I'm pro-choice. I don't want to do that. But there was no other option. So that's where we just wanted some safety around that. And I've found that that's one of the most difficult things about this conversation is because we have mental models, it takes us a while. When someone says something differently, we immediately want to put them in the other camp. And that's why we speak to creating a third option.
If you're not us,
then you're them.
You're them.
Right. But the third option idea really is based on how Jesus would do this so often. If you look at his interactions with the Pharisees, they would demand an either-or response, right? You know, should we stone this woman or not? And Jesus so brilliantly would spin it up to a third option, a kingdom perspective.
Do we pay taxes to Caesar or not?
Exactly. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Like if you read. So we started asking him, God, give us a third option in this, because you can feel the stalemate. Like God has to have a better solution than what we're experiencing now.
Okay, so everyone is dying to hear it. What's the third option?
Well, the third option is based on these two theological premises. The first being that the woman and child are intertwined. And if we're going to follow God's path, we have to work for both of them. And if you drill that down for Christians, we have been more vocal about the child's needs than the woman. So that's part of what we equip Christians with, is to see the woman, to empathize with her, and how we can work for her welfare. The second core theological belief is that God's path for transformation is always grace. It's the pattern of the gospel. We always get grace first. We get a new identity.
How do you define grace?
Oh, unmerited favor based on the sacrifice of Jesus.
Ding, ding, ding,
that's how I define it. So we have, if you look at how we've historically dealt with unplanned pregnancy and abortion, there's been more judgment than grace. And so that's the second piece of this, is to look at how Jesus interacted, like the story in John 8. How would he actually be displaying grace in this issue? And that's the ProGrace, kind of the core of who we are.
Okay, so just this morning I was reading an article online from, I forget which newspaper, about...
Oh,
no, I don't remember the
I don't
know the newspaper. Anyway, there's some controversy brewing at some Christian academy. Did you see this?
And I was on the plane, so I was not... So everyone is sending me this article about the woman who decided to...
an 18-year-old senior in a Christian high school who is pregnant and now is not being allowed to graduate, to walk in the graduation.
Exactly.
Because she's keeping the child.
Right.
And she apparently violated the code of conduct at the school, because clearly she had premarital sex.
Right. Maybe she didn't.
Well, I don't think she's claiming a miraculous conception here. But okay, fine. But she's making the hard decision to, or they're all hard decisions, but she's making the decision to keep this child, and the school won't let her walk.
Right.
So
let's unpack that.
Would you say that's ProGrace?
That's not ProGrace. That's not ProGrace. And we talk about this in our workshop with pastors. And so when we start, we say, okay, this young woman is pregnant. What was the sin?
I want to know if the guy's walking.
This is what you're
I'm sorry.
You're beating me to it.
Sorry.
Let me talk. Exactly.
I'm assuming he's at the school.
Question.
But, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The sin was sex outside of marriage. Right.
Yeah.
Who sinned is our second question. And you can see it in people's eyes. They're like, oh, two people. Exactly. And let's look at that high school class. Do you think anyone else in that high school class struggles with lust, pornography, or having sex outside of marriage? No.
But they don't have a baby bump.
And this is what we talk to pastors about. Let's talk about sexual purity. That school should be talking about sexual purity in the context of grace and the fact that we have the love of God. Let's talk about it. But if we only talk about it after this young woman is pregnant, then we are not being honest about everybody else struggling. And actually, we're heaping shame on her. What do you think the younger women think looking at her? Do you think they'll go through, or will they have an abortion in secret? So we actually are exacerbating the problem and not being honest by this type of reaction.
We have to let them know that that's wrong, or they'll all start doing it. And it'll be just the 60s all over again.
Right.
We've invested so much time and effort into abstinence.
Right.
That we can't take our foot off the gas.
Exactly. Well.
Right?
Well, so.
Help me.
Again, let's think about this with grace. Let's look about this through the lens of grace. We have a huge issue, and this is not my specialty. I'm not in the sexual purity theologically. That's not my specialty. I will say,
sexual purity isn't your thing, is it?
No.
Wow.
Oh my gosh! Is this one of the ones we can pause it? No.
She said it.
I just don't. Yeah.
This is a gotcha podcast, clearly.
I'm happily married for 24 years.
Okay.
Yes, sexual purity is my.
Okay.
I mean, but are any of us perfect in that area? No, we're not. I mean, maybe you are, but none of us, according to Jesus' standards, are perfect in that area.
Right.
So, yes, we need to have this conversation. And I have a daughter who will be 21. So, of course, I've had this conversation. It's God's best that we wait until marriage. Absolutely. And everything coming at us from the culture. But the answer to that is not to load down kids with shame. This is another thing we talk about. Shame, actually, if we think we're a bad person, it actually causes us to behave worse. That's why grace is such a brilliant answer, saying we're the forgiven people of God. We're holy and blameless. That's what allows us to live that way. So I'm not saying don't talk about sexual purity, but there's obviously a reason in this generation that kids don't find that an attractive option. And that's what we have to look at. What are we teaching our young people about God and His love and His acceptance of us that should be able to enable us to live the holy life He's called us to live. But heaping shame after someone makes a mistake is not helpful, especially in this area where there's a child also involved.
Okay, so your solution is you believe, from the church.
Yes, I do.
So you're going to churches.
Yes.
You're putting on seminars.
Yes.
Okay, and you're telling them what?
That's great. So here, get ready for your branding buzzer. I was at a Willow Creek Leadership Summit. There you go. And Bill Hybels said the local church is the hope of the world.
Yeah, he's known for that.
Yeah, and it was it was the first time I'd heard him say it. It was a Holy Spirit moment for me because we were working with women. We were seeing that we were having an impact, and yet their needs and their child needs, they were going to go on, longer. So we began experimenting with how we could connect women to the local church. So yes, I do think that is a solution. What happened in our journey was we tried connecting women to the local church, but there's some problems with that. First, women would tell us, why would I go to church as a pregnant, young, unmarried woman? They would literally say, I already feel bad about myself. Religion only makes you feel worse. Speaking to shame and how that's not the gospel. You know, the gospel draws people in. We were not drawing them in this area. And then Christians felt ill-equipped. Again, if we have a baby shower, are we condoning the sin? There's all these complicated issues in making the church a safe place for women facing an unplanned pregnancy. So we kind of backed up and started, we call them experiential workshops. Seminars sound so boring, but they are experiential workshops where we spend a half a day with church leaders walking them through the journey we had. So I had the privilege of sitting across from pastors, from pro-life leaders, from pro-choice leaders, and really wrestling with this for years. So we've put that all in this seminar, and we talk about how we can think differently about the issue. We really are looking for a paradigm shift.
Okay.
Like, I get excited when pastors are like, oh, I've never thought about that before. I look at this totally different now. And we really believe it starts there first, that we've been in this rut of a mental model that was so political that we weren't seeing God's full heart for the woman and the child. So that's the first step, thinking differently. Then we have another experiential workshop that equips people to talk differently, because that's the other thing. If you go out today, I dare you guys, go out today at dinner tonight.
The two of us?
Yeah, or just individually. Find a non-Christian friend, someone who isn't a believer yet, and start talking to them about abortion, and watch how many of their buttons that you press without even knowing why. And it's the language that we use, and it's the tone and how we've been in the community. So that's...
What do we say that we shouldn't say?
So I think it's interesting. Think about what we're saying when we say we're pro-life. Think about what they're hearing when we say we're pro-life.
Which is not an inherently bad
phrase,
but
beautiful phrase.
You're saying it's loaded with baggage.
It's a beautiful phrase. I think born again is a beautiful phrase. And when I was a young girl, everybody stopped using it. I can't even remember why. It was somehow in Carter's presidency. I don't know the full.
It got a little hippy-dippy.
Got bad connotation. Do I still think that's beautiful? Do I love reading that in John 3? Would I say I'm born again? Yes. But do I tell my neighbors at a dinner party?
Hi, I'm born again. Would you like to be born again?
Because of what it means to them. So that's an example.
So what's an alternative way of identifying where you are on this issue with someone?
So of course we love the word ProGrace. Are you going to hit your branding?
Oh, yeah.
We branded.
Yeah, sorry.
Is this a registered trademark? Does it have an R?
It is, actually.
Okay,
yes,
well,
it is a registered trademark.
Then we
it's
can
a
hit the
helpful
bell.
term.
We can hit the bell.
I just had some friends over. We had 2 couples over from our neighborhood in Colorado, and they were literally like, I've been dying to ask you these questions for 8 months since you moved in the neighborhood. And they started hitting me with all these abortion questions because they'd seen on Facebook the ProGrace thing. Yeah. So I was able to say, I believe that God creates all life. And he's equally as passionate about the woman and the child. So I'm pro-grace, which means I'm committed to finding a solution for both of them, for hope for both of their future. So that's how I talk about it. It works for me. But again, pro-life is a political party. Some of us think it's a moral term. It's so loaded with all these different connotations that you got to kind of pick your battles and think. You know.
So I'm guessing if you were to talk to somebody who has been decades in the pro-life movement, they would say, yeah, absolutely. We're for the woman too, and we're for the. So what differentiates not just your language, but what you try to do then?
Right. So then the third step is acting differently, a different type of outreach. And what happened in the early 80s is this was so volatile. This was like bombing abortion clinics, and that many churches wanted to have an outreach that was peaceful. And what they said was, let's not have this outreach in the church, because women won't come to the church when they're pregnant. So they already realized the problem. But instead of saying, let's change the church, they decided to create these outside outreaches to women facing unplanned pregnancy. Yeah. So we love those organizations. They're called pregnancy centers. We work with them. We think they're great. We also think is to let's change the church. And let's
not one or the other.
Exactly. Let's bring women back into the church. So we actually equip local churches where they can have an outreach to women facing unplanned pregnancy.
What does that mean? Equip them how?
Well, we have a whole curriculum and program.
Give them ultrasound machines?
No, we don't.
Okay.
It's about a support group is the model that we use within the churches. So it's women who are pregnant. You know, the big 2 factors driving women to abortions are shame. I will become that girl, and scarcity. This child and I won't have anything to live on.
Right.
So we train the church how to meet both of those needs. And the format is through a counselor-developed but lay-led support group where the women come into the church, they empower each other, they work with the group leader. And the great thing is a lot of them get connected to the church as a support system moving forward. And they see grace in action from believers. So some of them also decide to follow Jesus. And it's a beautiful model of we're actually meeting the needs of the women and creating a safe place where they and their child can thrive.
You brought up something that is overlooked in a lot of conversations around this issue because so many Christians see it purely as a moral issue or maybe as a legal/political issue. The statistics show that when the economy is really suffering, the abortion rate goes up.
Right.
Which means this is also an economic issue.
Absolutely.
That women are more likely to choose terminating a pregnancy because they don't have access to jobs or income or food or whatever it might be. So there's a very practical element that church can step in and help with.
Absolutely.
That, again, benefits both the woman and the child.
Yes, absolutely. And we do that. That's part of the ProGrace program. We spend most of our time with leaders early on dealing with the shame issue because that's actually the bigger undercurrent that women won't talk about, the stigma.
Right.
So we definitely and that's also what's blocked this from happening in the church is the stigma. So we spent, we talk about this 3-hour workshop. We spend the bulk of it talking about how to have grace and seeing everybody on the same playing field. And then once that's unlocked, the church is the natural place to pour all types of support and resources.
How hard is it to unlock that, though? It seems like we've been practicing being mad at people who are sinning for a long time.
I know. So that's why I'm so passionate about ProGrace because there's something in our journey that God's let us see that when we share it with leaders, they immediately, in this morning session, have this unlock, these aha moments. And we spend a lot of time in John 8. And we look at that whole interaction and we let people interact with the scripture themselves and let the Holy Spirit talk. And it's really, really cool to see people saying, yeah, why have we isolated this? Sin is worse than my own. And understanding that is actually driving abortion. Like we've actually been part of this.
We're making it worse.
Yes.
Well, and what makes it worse even beyond that is when we don't respond well to this particular sin, it can cost a child their life.
Yes.
And it can do irreparable damage to the woman.
Exactly.
So if I embezzle money and the church responds poorly, that's too bad. But if someone's pregnant and contemplating an abortion, and the church responds badly,
right.
the consequences are that much worse.
Absolutely.
So,
but it's been so secret. So one of the things we do that's been really helpful for pastors is we go into churches with a survey. And it's anonymous, so people can be honest. And we ask, how many of you in the church have had an abortion? Were you part of the church at the time? And it's amazing what comes up.
What have you found?
Oh, it's about 30%.
30% of women in the church
have had an unplanned pregnancy. Oh, you know what? Or maybe it's a chose abortion. See, I'm not good with details. My colleague Denise Stein needs to be here. Hit the branding.
Well, she's not a brand. She's a person.
Denise Stein, registered trademark.
It's pretty eye-opening to the congregation to see that happened.
How many churches have you done this in so far?
In the survey, 15 maybe.
Okay.
So, and then we have another piece of it where we give them a shortened version of this workshop that we do. So a church in Arizona just did both of those things. And at the 20-minute version, a woman stood up. She's 80 years old.
Yeah.
And she said, I've never told anybody this. Now think about this. I've never told anybody this.
Wow.
She said, but my daughter had an abortion, my oldest daughter, and I know for a fact it's because of the rhetoric that was in our home around this issue.
Wow.
She didn't think she'd find grace. So she said to her fellow brothers and sisters, let's adopt this approach. Let's keep doing this because I know for a fact that's one abortion that happened because of lack of grace. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I bet that dinged their bells.
It did.
I remember Kara Powell. Do you know Kara Powell? She's at Fuller Youth Institute. She did like Sticky Faith and anyway, she's been on our podcast. She's great. And
she's the governor of Colorado.
And see, if you had told me that, I would have believed you.
Yeah. But she talks about how kids who are
raised. Did you just say Dinkelbopper? That's the governor.
There's rumors he could possibly run for president.
That's the governor of Seussland.
I feel horrible.
Hickenlooper. It's not that funny, is it?
It is funny.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
I'm going to Google it. I'm apologizing to him if he ever hears this. I'm really sorry.
Well,
I was on a plane this morning. I'm going to.
Yeah, that really
excuse
messes
everything
with you.
Yeah, some low oxygen levels and things like that. What was I talking about?
And the plane was doing Hickenloopers.
Kara Powell. But anyway, she's done a lot of research on teenagers who abandon the faith or those who stick with the faith. And one of the big things that came out of her research was the ones who abandon the faith. Equally, whether they stick with the faith or not, all these young adults struggle with all kinds of moral boundaries when they reach college age and beyond. But she said the ones who stick with the faith realize that you can struggle and still be a Christian. And those who abandon the faith assume that if you struggle, you can't be a Christian. And so one of the things she said this did to impact her own parenting was she will regularly tell her kids or remind them that there's no sin so big God can't forgive it. Rather than creating this artificial category of these sins, or if you get into this territory, game over. Because that's the shame that ends up driving people into dark places.
Well, and that is the stratification of sin. So when our Savior says that lust is the same as adultery and hatred is the same as murder, it says we're all messed up. So I think that's
the truth. But did he mean it?
I think he did mean it.
Are you sure?
I think he did. And
did Lutzer say he meant it?
I have to check with Dr. Lutzer, yes. But you think about that, and you think about him telling the Pharisees, you look great on the outside, but inside you're full of dead bones. I really think we've gotten away from grace. I mean, really, we've gotten away from understanding our condition and then the beautiful gift of Jesus. So it's not just that I need his grace when I do the quote unquote big sins. I need his grace every morning. His mercies are new every morning. And when I understand that, he's continually washing me of my sin, that actually makes me want to be more holy. So I feel like we've gotten it backwards. I talk to my kids all the time about the love of the Father and the grace, because that's the only thing. I'm a recovering legalist myself, and his grace is the only thing that actually makes me want to get rid of these harmful habits. When I think I'm going to be judged for them, guess what? They look a lot more appealing.
But isn't grace really hard to embrace when we're afraid?
Totally.
I mean, so it gets back to what Phil said, which is, well, if we really extend grace all over the place, then people are going to mismisbehave. Right? That's the fear.
The kids will run amok.
Exactly. But
they'll start dancing.
But it'll be like Footloose.
Yeah, it'll be just like Footloose.
Yeah, and I really think it's the opposite. It's the law that kills. Because we were given the law to see that we could never make it. It was a tutor to lead us to Jesus. So I feel like grace reveals Jesus in all of his glory and his goodness and his kindness. And it's the kindness of God that leads us to repentance.
So can you tell us a story of a church you work with that went through your training and an example of how it impacted their approach to everything?
Yes. So we actually have tomorrow night, we'll be at St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Arlington Heights, Missouri Synod Church.
That sounds mainline.
Yeah, it sounds
Missouri
mainline.
Synod.
Don't expect a lot.
They better give up on the abstinence thing. Or
I'm
kidding. They're going
I'm joking.
Oh, that was terrible.
Sorry.
Oh, well.
So they went through our training about 3 years ago. So one of the first churches we piloted this with. And the senior pastor was there and all the leaders. And it was really cool because he said to me, it's great to see other churches talking about grace. The Lutherans been talking about grace since Martin Luther. It's about time the rest of you all evangelicals come along the bandwagon.
Well, we talk about it a lot. Talking's not the problem.
Yeah, it was great. So they had this aha experience and decided they wanted to open up their church and run a support group for women facing unplanned pregnancies. So those women are actually graduating here in the next couple of weeks. We'll be there tomorrow night throwing a dinner for them.
So they will get to walk.
Their stories.
Okay.
See, and that's the difference. They're being celebrated. So in this church, every week they could come for the support group, and all of them said, I'm not really sure about God. When they came in. And it was a little bit scary to go to a church and receive this. But it's like, well, I'm just going to go to church and receive this program, right? I don't have to get involved with the church. But through these years, as they've gotten to know each other and gotten to know the church, they will occasionally come to the services. One of them has actually gotten baptized. And what happens in the group is they realize, I'm not part of a stereotype. I'm just like everybody else in this church. I mean, we have an amazing power to communicate that, and that's what's been communicated, which means that my child and I can actually do well.
Right.
And the church has stepped in with really creative ways of doing that. The pastors came once and did a chili cook-off. They got to judge the chili. There's a school there, which is great about this particular church, and they, for one Halloween, every classroom existed only to give candy to the kids of the women in the group. Just communicating such honor and dignity and respect. And so the church is holding a celebration for them in a couple of weeks here on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
We're going to honor them as they graduate. And now they're able to still stay involved in the church. They could help lead a group in the future. You know.
Yeah.
Have you seen a church that we would typically think of as much more legalistic, you know, a very conservative, you know, Southern Baptist church, or do the program and make that mental shift? And how much harder is it if we've been raised, because my background is much more, you know, if you sin, make sure it's not one that actually shows up visibly.
Exactly.
When you walk into church.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you can be greedy at work. That's fine.
Right.
That doesn't walk into church with you.
Exactly.
But smoking.
Right.
If you have to take a smoke break in the middle of the service.
That's bad.
Yeah, we'll string you up.
Well, see, I mean, I gave my life to Christ about 7 times before someone talked to me about
me
but he
too.
actually didn't leave me. Yeah. So what's been really great, now we're relatively new, but we've done the workshop, the Think Differently piece with about maybe 50 different churches. And we've seen the same response from pastors at St. Peter Lutheran as we have from the staff team at Willow Creek, the Moody Church, Soul City Church. I know I'm just branding away all these churches. There was a lovely group of Catholic priests that were going out into the mission field. They had the same response. God opened these doors in Uganda, Africa. We trained 100 pastors there, and they would say the same things, like the scales fell from my eyes.
Wow.
So that's what's so great is this transcends cultural, it transcends whether it's liturgical or evangelical. We've just been in Arizona, which has a different even culture. There were some Reformed churches there, as well as, I haven't been to a church yet where the pastor said, no, we don't like this.
So
every single church
we're
we've done it
anti-grace.
for. Yeah, right.
So you're encouraged.
I'm really encouraged.
Do you think the local church can actually play this role?
Yeah, I think it's the only thing that will shift the tide of abortion.
Okay. Can I ask an uncomfortable question?
Can I say my vision first?
Yeah, go
and then
for it.
ask
Yeah,
an uncomfortable question. So when you have these women and children thriving in these churches, when the churches have gone, we've looked at the log in our own eye first, right? We've changed the way we think and talk and act, and now you've got communities of women and children thriving in these groups. That's the only thing that'll change the story around abortion. That's the only, I don't think any political party is going to have the full answer. That's what's going to turn the tide of abortion. So yeah, I do think that's the answer. Now challenge me. Go ahead.
Well, it's not challenge. It's just uncomfortable. So what do you advise churches to do when, let's say they've collected a group of women with unplanned pregnancies, and they're walking with them, and they're caring for them, and doing hopefully the ProGrace kind of way. And one of these women chooses to end their pregnancy anyway.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
Grace.
And what does that look like? I know, I mean, of course, but what does that look like?
Still get the candy?
They would have to come
that's the hard reality.
Is
as much as we're going to reach out and love and care,
it's not going to work 100% of the
Absolutely.
time.
And absolutely.
So how do we respond?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like we would respond if someone came and said, I'm addicted to pornography, or I'm an alcoholic, or, I mean, we all are broken, and then we all have seasons of more intense brokenness. And the woman who's chosen abortion needs the church quite a lot. And she needs grace, and she needs to understand the complete forgiveness. One of the things that's sad for me is that when women talk about past abortion, there's very few of them that feel really free. And grace truly frees. And that's another passion I have with this. That one thing that happened in a church, actually, that just did, our friend Brian Kruckenberg, New City down in Phoenix. Yep, they just did the 20-minute version of this at a men's breakfast and a women's breakfast. And he told me that at both breakfasts, people felt the freedom to say, this was me.
Yeah.
I had an abortion. And to be surrounded with grace. So when we talk about this with grace, we're going to see more people who've had abortion come up and talk about it, as well as we're going to have to be there for the woman who chooses that in the moment.
Yeah.
Years
ago at my church, there was this very eye-opening moment. We, in the past, would more frequently allow people to stand up and share something in the congregation, kind of testimonial. And this woman who'd been in the church for decades shared her story of having, I think, 1 or 2 abortions. And, I mean, you could have heard a pin drop, right? But that was, for me, a really important moment, because I was still on staff at the church and preaching somewhat regularly, and it never occurred to me as I looked out on that congregation that in this group of 500 people, there's going to be quite a few like her who I just hadn't even thought of, because you always think it's outside. It's not inside. And it ought to change the way we talk about it, and the way we think about it, and the way we create safe spaces for women wherever they may be, including young women, you know, even those who are not sexually active, to talk about this. So one of my right around the same time, I used to take one of my kids out for lunch every week. I'd pick them up from school and take them out to lunch. My daughter was in 3rd grade. I took her to Chick-fil-A, and we're sitting there eating our sandwiches, and I asked her, so what's going on at school? And she said, well, the kids are talking about something that's really bothering me. I said, what is it? And she said, well, why does President Obama want to kill babies? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a conversation with my 3rd grader about abortion. But having seen those conversations in the church, I realized this is the beginning of what's going to shape her view of not just abortion, but her own understanding of grace and all this. So, yeah, this isn't we have to be having these conversations.
We have to have this conversation. And, you know, it isn't just the women, it's the men. In a lot of our workshops, men will share their stories about how their girlfriend got pregnant when they were in college. They need to be able to talk about it as well. I mean, it takes 2 people to get pregnant, and that's part of the issue, is we so focus on the woman that this is something for the whole church to be involved in.
How can we learn more?
You can go to ProGrace.org. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and we would love for people. We're just want to get this message out to as many people as possible. So there's a video on there that talks about it. You can share it with people. That's a great little video.
Yeah, it is a great video.
It's
a couple minutes. It's really
2 minutes. Share that with everybody. Post it on your Facebook page. But we want to start this conversation.
Does your church have to be in Chicago, Arizona, or Uganda to be a part of it?
Or Phoenix? No, we are. The vision is to take this nationally and obviously internationally. But
well, you've done it. Here you are on the podcast. This is it.
We're starting small, but we want to have people have this conversation everywhere. And then if there's enough people having it and they want us to come in and train their church, we will travel.
Awesome. I have to wrap it up with a song now.
Phil's going to do a song about abortion.
Ooh, I want to hear how you...
ProGrace.org. Yeah, I want to hear this too. Okay. Oh, Angie Weszely, I bet you wouldn't guess she has a Z in her name. Because Angie Weszely, I think she's the best at turning away from shame and reminding us that it's a terrible distortion to believe God can't forgive an abortion. And we gotta ask ourselves, if a woman came to our church, would she feel grace or would she just feel shame? And could she call on the everlasting name of Jesus? Would he get the satisfaction to see grace in action? Yeah, that's pretty good, huh?
That's not bad.
Thank you, it's not bad. Okay, that's Angie Weszely. The website is prograce.org. Go check it out. And church, we can do something about this. Thanks. Oh, your book's out?
Book is out.
Sky's book is out.
What's wrong with religion.com?
What's wrong with religion.com?
Yeah,
I don't know. What's wrong with it?
You got to find out. And then it's on Amazon and all those normal places.
Awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Please help. This is a big project. My future depends on it.
He's trying to grow hair and he needs money. So buy his book.
If you buy my book, I will not use the money for a hair transplant. You got to put that little disclaimer down there.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I'm so disappointed.
I've cut my losses.
Okay. Okay, thanks for being here. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
The Phil Vischer Podcast is produced by Phil Vischer Enterprises and recorded live at Jellyfish Lab Studios. This episode was edited by Jason Rugg and was fact-checked by absolutely no one. For more information, go to philvischer.com.